Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going deep on this thing. Everyone's talking about the 50-30-20 budget.
Yeah, it really is everywhere these days.
And I get why it seems so simple, right?
Right.
Like 50% needs, 30 wants, then 20 for savings and paying off debt.
Mm-hmm.
But is it really that easy in real life?
Well, that's why we're doing this deep dive, right? To go past just the numbers.
Exactly. Because like cookie cutter budgets, those never really work for anyone.
No, they don't. And that's actually the cool part of this rule, how flexible it can be.
Okay. I'm looking
It's more like a starting point than a set of rules.
Gotcha. So for our listeners who maybe tried other budgets and it didn't quite work, break down this 50-30-20 thing. What's the heart of it?
Basically, it's about planning your spending based on how much money you actually have after taxes.
Okay, makes sense.
It's like taking your money and cutting it into 3 slices of pie.
Pie. So what's in each slice?
The biggest slice, 50% of your money, that's for your needs.
Needs, okay.
The stuff you absolutely gotta have to, live each day.
Rent, groceries, that kind of thing?
Right, exactly. Rent or mortgage, utilities, food, how you get to work.
Stuff you can't really skip on.
Yeah.
But isn't it easy to, trick yourself into thinking something's a need when it's not?
Mm-hmm.
Like my daily latte, I tell myself it's a need.
Haha, I get that. Yeah, that's a trap we'll talk more about later. But for now, think of these needs as like the base of your budget.
That's solid foundation.
Exactly.
All right, what about the next slice? Hopefully the fun one.
Oh, yeah, this is the good stuff. So this one's 30%, and it's all your wants. Things that make you happy,
Going out to eat, concerts, new video games, that type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that, dining out, seeing a movie, hobbies, or just treating yourself.
Love it. But isn't this where it gets kind of tricky? What one person sees as a want, someone else might think it's a need, right?
You're right. Good point.
Like a photographer, maybe they need a new lens for work.
That's true, and it shows how important it is to be honest with yourself about what's really important.
Yeah.
What are your priorities?
Right.
What are your money goals?
It's all about finding what works for you.
Right. Remember, this whole rule, it's meant to be a guide, not a strict rule book.
A guide. Got it. Okay, so we've got needs, wants.
Yeah.
What about that last piece of the pie, that 20%?
Ah, yes, this one's for your future.
Uh-oh, serious stuff now.
It is. This is for savings and paying off any debts you have.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
Like, think of it as setting yourself up for a better financial future.
Okay.
This is where you build up that emergency fund so when something unexpected happens, you're ready.
Makes sense. Like when your car breaks down, you got to get a new fridge.
Exactly. Those things that just pop up and can really mess with your finances.
Oh, yeah.
This 20% also helps you tackle things like credit card debt or student loans.
Ugh, the worst.
And also covers investing so your money can grow over time.
So it's not just saving for a rainy day. It's also about building a safety net and making your money work for you.
Exactly.
I like that. But I'm guessing it's not always easy to stick to that 20%, right?
You're right. It's not. There's always going to be temptations.
Oh, yeah.
Things you want to buy, unexpected expenses. It can be tough.
So how do we stay on track with this whole thing?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about. We'll go over some common challenges and give you tips on how to overcome them.
This is why I love these deep dives. We don't just talk about the idea, we actually get into the nitty-gritty of how to make it work.
Absolutely. And you'll be surprised how much power you have once you learn how to manage your money well.
Love it. Okay, so we've got the basics of this 50-30-20 rule down, but I'm curious, what makes it actually work? And what are those challenges you mentioned?
Let's get into it. I think you'll find it pretty interesting.
Okay, so let's break down why this 50-30-20 thing seems to work so well for people.
One big reason is how simple it is.
Simple. Okay.
You don't need to be like a math whiz to get it right.
True.
3 categories, easy percentages, almost like budgeting made easy.
I can see that appeal, for sure. But does that simplicity ever, work against it? Like, isn't it oversimplifying things a little? I see what you mean. And sometimes people can get a little too focused on the exact numbers.
Right.
It's important to remember this is more like a starting point, a framework.
Okay, so we use it to build our own plan from there.
Exactly. Like, let's say someone has a ton of credit card debt, high interest rates. They could choose to make that savings and debt slice bigger, maybe 30% or even 40% for a while.
While they're paying that debt down.
Right. And they'd adjust the needs and wants parts to make it all work.
So it's not about being trapped by the percentages. It's more about the big idea. Getting your money goals in order, whatever those goals are.
Exactly.
That's one example. How else does this flexibility work in real life?
Well, think about someone saving for a down payment on a house.
Okay, big goal.
They might choose to cut back on their wants, maybe down to 20% so they can save faster.
Makes sense.
Once they hit that goal, they can always go back to a more comfortable balance.
So it's like shifting gears depending on what you're trying to do.
I like that analogy.
Sometimes you need more power. Sometimes you need a smoother ride.
Exactly, and that's a huge part of why this rule works for people. It can change with them.
It's about making choices, not being deprived.
Right.
Speaking of choices, let's talk about that needs versus wants thing. I feel like that's where a lot of people get tripped up.
Oh, absolutely. That's where it gets tricky.
Yeah.
It's easy to start convincing yourself that a want is actually a need.
Especially with all the ads and stuff telling us what we need all the time.
Yes. That's why being self-aware is so important.
Knowing yourself.
Ask yourself the tough questions. Do I really need this or just want it?
Is this going to help me reach my money goals?
Exactly. And that's why tracking your spending is so helpful.
So you can really see where your money's going.
It's like looking in a mirror at your money habits, and you might be surprised what you see.
Oh, I bet. When I first started tracking my spending, I was like, wow, I spend how much on takeout coffee?
Uh-huh. We've all been there.
It was a real wake-up call.
But those moments are what make the difference. Once you see the pattern, you can change it.
Like realizing packing lunch a few times a week could mean more savings.
Exactly.
Speaking of savings, one thing I liked about this 50-30-20 thing is that it makes you save. But what about those surprise expenses that always seem to happen at the worst time? Does this rule still work then?
That's where that 20% savings and debt part comes in.
Okay.
Remember, part of that is for your emergency fund.
Right, for emergencies.
You want to aim for having 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved up, just in case.
So if something big happens, like car repairs or a medical bill you weren't expecting,
Exactly. That savings becomes like a cushion.
instead of freaking out and putting it on a credit card,
Right. You can handle it knowing you have a backup plan.
that peace of mind makes a huge difference.
It really does.
Okay, I'm seeing how all this fits together now.
Yeah.
It's not just about the numbers. It's about how you live your life with money. Not depriving yourself, but not stressed about every dollar either.
I'm glad to hear that. It's about finding that balance, enjoying today while feeling good about the future.
That's the dream. But I gotta admit, I'm still not 100% clear on how to actually do this. Like, I get the idea, but how do we put it into action?
That's a great question, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about next.
Okay, let's get into the how-to part of all this.
Yeah.
Where do we even start with actually using this 50-30-20 thing?
Well, the first thing, and it might seem obvious, is you got to track your spending.
Okay, track spending. I'll admit that's not the most exciting thing in the world. Are we talking spreadsheets, apps, or like writing it all down?
It's really whatever works best for you. Some people love those apps that do all the fancy stuff automatically.
Yeah.
Categorizing transactions, making charts. Some people are into that.
Makes sense.
Others like a simple spreadsheet where they can type it in themselves.
Okay.
And believe it or not, some people still use pen and paper, the old school way.
So as long as you're tracking where your money goes, it doesn't really matter how you do it.
Exactly. The important part is to be consistent. Once you see your spending habits clearly, that's when you can start making those choices we talked about.
So let's say I've been tracking for a month and I realize I'm spending way too much on takeout. What's next?
That's where you turn those aha moments into action. Maybe set a budget for eating out each week.
Okay.
Challenge yourself to bring lunch from home a few times instead. Even small changes can help.
And wouldn't this be a good time to revisit those needs versus wants? Maybe that daily latte isn't a need after all.
You got it. Tracking your spending really shows you those tricky areas, helps you see what you really need versus what you just want but have gotten used to.
Okay, tracking makes sense. What other tips do you have for mastering this budgeting rule?
One of my favorites is automating your savings. It's like paying yourself first before anything else can derail you.
I love that, paying yourself first. How does that actually work, though?
Most banks let you set up automatic transfers from your checking to savings.
Okay.
Choose an amount each month, or even a percentage of each paycheck to go straight into savings.
So it's like having a little robot putting money aside for you, no effort required.
Exactly. That's the beauty of it. You don't even have to think about it. The money just shows up in your savings and you can focus on other things.
This is starting to sound less like budgeting and more like just being smart with your money.
That's what it's all about. Creating a system that works for you, not against you.
So we're tracking, we're automating. What else can we do to stay on track with this 50-30-20 thing?
Let's talk about those sneaky expenses that mess things up. Those impulse buys that drain your account without you even realizing it.
Oh, I know those all too well. Online shopping sprees, those treat-yourself moments that you later regret.
They add up fast, And that's where the 7-day rule can be a lifesaver.
7-day rule. Okay, tell me more.
Before you buy anything that's not absolutely necessary, give yourself 7 days to think about it.
So basically, don't buy it right away.
Right. Write down what it is, how much it costs, the date, then just walk away.
Let the thoughts simmer for a bit.
Exactly. Usually after a week, that urge to buy it has passed. Or you realize you didn't really need it anyway. It's like giving your brain time to catch up to your emotions.
Love that. Such a simple idea, but I can see how it would be really helpful. All right, we've covered a lot today. Any final thoughts to help our listeners really get this 5D3020 rule down?
Just remember, this is a journey, not a race. There will be times you mess up, things come up, or you just make a choice that wasn't perfect for your budget. And that's okay.
It's not about being perfect. It's about trying your best, right?
Right. Be kind to yourself, learn from any mistakes, and keep going. The important thing is you're taking control of your money, creating a way of life that helps you reach your goals.
This has been so helpful. I feel like I finally understand this 30-30-20 thing. It's not just about a budget. It's about having a healthy relationship with your money.
That's exactly it. And it all starts with making that choice to be in control.
So to all our listeners, we leave you with this. What's one small step where you can take today to start your journey to financial success? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, happy budgeting, everyone.